Hey, what's up folks? The last few days I've been playing Witch Hunter again, and we've escaped the Nerf bat. I've had at least a couple hundred people, maybe more, ask me to do a version of the Fresh Clip Gemling on Witch Hunter, and that's exactly what this is. This configuration is a slightly better mapper than the Gemling one. I think Witch Hunter is just a better mapper overall, and the damage is extremely good still. My experience was that you get about the same amount of damage for the same amount of investment as you do in Gemling. The thing that Gemling gets that Witch Hunter doesn't is double the inherent bonus from stats, but that doesn't affect our damage. We're not an Archmage build, it just makes the mana spend a little easier. Now to highlight what I think Witch Hunter is better at, I tried to roll a really tanky map here. So these mobs have double HP, and if you know how the ES scaling on Life is Extra ES goes, you'll know that these monsters have a ton of hit points. My best guess is that this is 7 or 8 million DPS, but it has a huge amount of headroom. A lot of the gear can be improved. The thing that also is different about Witch Hunter is that you have to build around it differently defensively. So you can't rely on a huge mom pool, you have to do multiple defensive mechanics. And so what I've done is I've tried out several different defensive setups. I went full CI, I went full evasion, I went acrobatics, I went full mom. And the defensive setup that felt the best by far was to go 2.5 or 3k mana with mom, have a decent sized energy shield pool with Grem Feast, so I've got 2k energy shield, maybe a bit more, and then also about 10k evasion. Now those numbers might sound high, but they're actually very achievable. It's not that hard to scale energy shield, it is not that hard to get that high in evasion, even with only a couple pieces. Now I did something like 20 or 25 Delirium maps that I tried to roll hard just to make sure that I was confident saying that the defensive setup here is good, and I feel really good about it. The only death close call I had was in a ritual with one of those rat tornadoes, and I spawned in a corner where a tree like sort of pinned me down and I couldn't get out of it and I had to log. But otherwise, 0 deaths, and it never felt like I was in a huge amount of danger. Now let's look at the passive tree changes. Now, this is going to be built off of the information in the video in the description. It takes me a long time to make the really long 20-minute videos, so I'm going to do a short one because I know a bunch of people are waiting on this, and then I'll do something longer a little later. Anyway, the main difference is around this part of the tree. So I'm taking the notables that are basically the Trickster Ascendency from PoE 1 called Escape Artist. It gives a lot of additional energy shield or evasion depending on the type of bases that you're using, and it synergizes really well with hybrid bases. The other changes to the tree are taking enhanced reflexes and bestial skin, which gives us a lot of evasion, and otherwise not much else has changed. Now I've spent millions of gold respecking my tree all over the place to go full CI, a wide variety of setups, and this one is just felt the best, both in terms of survivability and the amount of damage it puts out. I've also prioritized % increased evasion on my jewels, and I have changed what I'm looking for in my amulet to give me more energy shield and more increased evasion. Real quick, I'm going to touch on the defensive layers, and again, I'll do a longer video, but you can see here I have 10k evasion, which is about 77% evade chance. It means I only take 1 in 4 melee strikes and 1 in 4 projectiles, which actually feels really good. So much so that I might actually do this on my Gemling as well. I've also changed the aura setup, so I'm using Grim Feast and Wind Dancer now since I care about evasion. I also worked on Ghost Dance, but it just didn't feel worth the extra spirit needed. Like I would have to have some spirit on my amulet, and I just didn't want to do that. So this is a 100 spirit setup: Grim Feast, Wind Dancer, Herald of Thunder. The other question I've gotten a lot is how did the gems change? And so this is what I've set up for Shock Burst and Galvanic. I'm using Martial Tempo, Lightning Infusion, Elemental Focus, Concentrated Effect, and Fresh Clip. Fresh Clip is the most important support by a lot. It's more than a double multiplier for our damage. But the big change is Elemental Focus for Primal Armament. This is because mana spend is a bigger issue now, and Elemental Focus has no multiplier to our mana cost. And we're not doing ailments with Shock Burst anyway, so it doesn't matter that we cannot inflict ailments. Galvanic Shards has Fork, and actually I missed having Fork in the Gemling version. I've updated the Mobalytics guide to include Fork. Fork is a big damage multiplier because of the way the chaining works. I've got Long Shot, Primal Armament, Close Combat, and Conduction here. Now I didn't have a great 5th support, so obviously I have Close Combat and Long Shot. If you have a better idea for the 5th support, let me know in the comments. Now my sheet DPS in this configuration is 1.3 million, but also keep in mind that we get another 30% damage from the Ascendency, and then Decimating and Culling Strike on top of that. Okay, so speaking of the Ascendency, I'll show you what I've done. I've decided not to take Sorcery Ward, and I took No Mercy and all the way through Judge, Jury, and Executioner. I went raw damage because Sorcery Ward just hasn't felt worth it without a Cloak of Flame, and I wanted the Warrior Invictus chest for mana and attributes. Last thing I'm going to cover is gear. So I purchased a higher ES helmet, and that is for Spectral Ward. This gives us a lot of additional evasion as well as ES. Now, I prefer this over the Black Sun Crest because losing all of the res and stats that you can get from it are kind of a big deal, and I don't find the Black Sun Crest worth it unless you're, many hundreds of divines invested in the build, which I'm just not here. I wanted to make this a more achievable budget. And then the amulet itself, so I was looking for energy shield, so either increased maximum energy shield or flat energy shield, and then a high roll of increased evasion, and then the standard like all attributes, dex and int. Now these roll much higher, like you can get over 500 ES on the helmet, but I didn't want to get crazy pieces of gear. I paid 1 divine for each of these. And to see what the damage looks like in the exact same budget gear as the under 10 divines budget, this is what it looks like. It's about 73k sheet DPS, and again, like I get more damage from the Ascendency, so it's probably about the same or slightly more than the 10 divine gemling video I did. All right, that's all I got. I'll link the Mobalytics guide with the full passive tree and all that in the description below. I hope you guys are having a great weekend.